my name is Klaus Schustereder. I'm a medical doctor, a specialist in general internal medicine, and since about a year I do interviews with colleagues, with lawyers, with teachers, and today for the first time I have the opportunity to talk with an international banker whose name is Pascal Najadi.
Yes.
Great pleasure for me to meet you,
Yes.
Mr. Najadi.
Dr. Schustereder,
Yes.
welcome to Lucerne, welcome to this house, 500 years old. A lot of interesting discussions happened on this table. I had politicians here, journalists, filmmakers, normal bankers or people. And today you're welcome in our house.
Thank you so much.
Let's have a talk.
Well, the reason you catch my attention is, or was a video I saw on YouTube, and I listened to you, and I thought, wow, this is real what he's saying. It's really coming from his heart, and it felt completely authentic. And you were saying in this video that you went to the police office to charge a criminal file against the Swiss president.
Yeah.
So here is the document you got from this procedure.
Correct.
And can you explain us a little bit what motivated you to do so?
Well, motivation, it's more anger. I'm a Swiss citizen. I'm injected, they call it vaccination, but today I call it injection, by mRNA, Pfizer-BioNTech stuff that was proclaimed to be protecting me from the COVID or coronavirus and protecting others. And I had to find out on October 10 of last year, a few months ago, we had Janine Small, the Pfizer manager, in the European Parliament, admitting that Pfizer-BioNTech has never tested the vaccine for contagion and or transmission of the virus. So that you have to, it sinks in. I'm 3 times injected by this stuff. My wife and my 80-year-old mother is also injected by this stuff, rMNA technology. So we find out from the producer of the so-called vaccine, it's black and white and it's audio, it's on video, recorded, not in a restaurant or in a blog or some discussion, it's in the European Parliament, highly formal place to make such a statement. I realized that I have been deceived by the Minister of Health, which is Alain Berset, still today, Federal Council, today President of Switzerland as well, Alain Berset, who has run the entire COVID campaign and vaccination campaign. Still today, he is in charge of this. With the Ministry of Health, the Federal Office for Public Health, FOPH. I said something's gone wrong. I then also saw the reports from a lawyer, a Swiss lawyer called Philippe Kruse. He represents the Swiss victims of the mRNA vaccination or injection. I think it's 3 dead people. He represents the families of those victims. And I think a number up to 20 victims of the mRNA injection that have so-called severe medical conditions. One of which is a lady in a wheelchair. A young lady, well, not old, she was fit and proper, and after the injection, she's bound to a wheelchair. I get, of course, more worried. The Pfizer tells me the stuff doesn't work, it's experimental, we didn't test it really. And I had to check for myself, for my conscience, as a citizen, I said, this is impossible, this is not happening. It's not happening. And I went to check official statements of the Federal Office of Public Health, the ministry which is run by Minister or Federal Council Berset himself, He ran the vaccination campaign. The first statement he made on Facebook on the day when the program was starting, you can look it up in Google. He says, the vaccination has been tested like any other vaccination has to be tested by Swissmedic. Second statement is, it's safe. Third statement is, it's effective. It protects you against the coronavirus infection. So that was the program of the government, because he is government. I look up to the highest authority regarding health. For me, it's the Minister of Health. Maybe my doctor, but the highest authority making policy and laws about health is the Minister of Health. So I went through the statements of the official statements, press conferences of the Federal Office for Public Health. They had it weekly. The media were creating a huge panic through the country at the time. COVID kills you. You will know family members that will die, and so on and so forth. And there were regular press conferences hosted, most of them by Alain Berset and his team of experts, one of which is a lady called Dr. Virginie Masseret. And she often gave her reporting about infection control, about policy, about latest, newest findings on the science about the so-called virus. And on the 3rd of August 21, in a press conference, she states, one, that they received a report from the American Office of Public Health, the CDC. I mean, this is the American government, notifying worldwide people, medical officers, etc., saying that they came to the conclusion, that was the report in August 21, that vaccinated people transmit the virus as easily and often as unvaccinated people. Then she herself, in French she spoke, a journalist asked her, is this true? And she said, yes, we have this conclusion. Vaccinated people transmit as often and easily the virus as unvaccinated people. So I made stop, I made a note and a date. I continued to go through it. And then I find this very important event, which was the 27th of October, 3 months later, after Virginie's statement, head of infection control at the BAG, Federal Office of Public Health, which is presided by Alain Berset. 3 months later, he says on television, before the votation, the public vote, whether or not to implement the COVID law and the so-called COVID certificate, said on television live, prime time, everybody's watching that. With the certificate, you are sure to show that you are not contagious. So I said, stop. I make a note. I said, how come? We have CDC of America. We have own findings. I mean, the first ones I found publicly stated by Virginie Masseret, who is in charge. She is competent and has authority to make such statements. But 3 months after this scientific finding that the stuff doesn't work, he says something else. He says, no, it works. So I said, this cannot be true. So I was shocked. I combined these things in one line, in a chronological order. I made a memo where I, for myself, made notes first to understand the case and said, where did it go wrong? I wrote it myself. I wrote it in about half an hour, really. And that's it. I said, I have to inform everybody, justice, about this because something's wrong. Cannot be true. Because we went to vaccinate, imagine this. We got this so-called certificate. We went to restaurants, to friends, to parents, said, hey, I'm green. You hug people, you kiss them, you don't, all these things. We were actually endangering others based on an untruth spoken on public television, on state television. part of the campaign. So it's in aviation, if you fly a plane and you have a red light, you pay attention. Something's wrong. You shut down an engine or you do this and that, otherwise you crash. And I said, we have to stop this. This cannot be true. I'm injected with something. Today it's known. Pfizer admitted it, is experimental. And I said, I have to report this to the police. So I went to the police and reported it.
So you would expect that the Minister of Health's information shared with the large audience and the public corresponds to what has been concluded by the person in charge at the Federal Office of Public Health, which was clearly not the case.
No. Imagine you buy a new Volkswagen Golf and you drive it, and after 2 weeks, Volkswagen finds out that the brakes don't work. What do? All over the place say, bring back the car. You cannot drive anymore, right? You stop. Here it's worse. Driving is one thing without brakes. This is a direct infection, an injection into a human body. We have Nuremberg Codex and stuff like that. Since we learned from the Second World War, I hope, you have a government injecting stuff into people's bodies knowingly that it doesn't function.
Personal question, what was more painful for you to learn? The fact that it doesn't prevent transmission or that it doesn't avoid infection? Because you said, I could have been contagious for other people.
Same bad guilt. I thought, Jesus Christ, I went out there probably spreading the virus. Both, anger, same thing, vacuum, total anger.
To be potentially a threat for other people.
Of course. I could have potentially harmed other people. What do I know? I don't know.
So you are a banker, you have had a huge international career, you have been involved with governments on the highest level, not just in Europe, but all over the world. Can you walk us through a little bit through your career?
Yeah, to make it short, I finished economic school. 18, I went to the army, 2 years. 20, I went to get the first job at UBS in Zurich. Then I went to another bank in capital markets in charge of foreign issuers for bond issues in Swiss francs. These are deals, 100 million, 200, 300, 500. These are the deal sizes you're talking. And then American giant, at that time, #1 investment bank in the early 90s, Merrill Lynch, came and said, can you do the same thing in Zurich for us? So we built Merrill Lynch in Zurich. We ran up a program of $2 billion of Swiss francs. That was a lot in 1 year, 30 people, and continued to grow. And I had an affinity for the former Austrian Empire, for Hungary, because Hungary was a young, emerging country after the wall came down in 89 in Berlin. So I did the first bond issue for the Republic of Hungary. It was 150 million Swiss francs, I remember, 7 years. And I got into this Central Eastern Europe network of governmental advisory. Then London called me and said, come to London, you're young, we'll give you more territory. So gave me Baltics, the former K&K basically, down to Croatia, ex-Russia. And thereafter, the second largest at that time German bank, Dresdner Bank, London said, the unit in London of Dresdner Bank, Frankfurt said, join our board, management board at 29, and you're in charge of Russia, Central Europe, Central Asia, the Stans, Middle East, the whole Persian Gulf and Saudi Arabia and everything, and Africa. Advisory for governments, ministerial level, some cases head of states, mostly in crisis and emerging, interesting challenges. In one occasion, we went around the world with a plane in 21 days, 15 stops, to educate people about a country, to tell the story. You can imagine 21 days, 15 stops around the world, full circle. Today you do it by Zoom. At that time, you take an aircraft and you go. So managing crisis was always my specialty, and I had my own methodology. No matter how big the chaos is, no matter what the problem is, I want it on one page. In a crisis, I have no time to read 20 pages. I want the problem on one page. If possible, on the back, solutions. But it should fit on one page, really. Condense it. And of course, from those lines, you develop side reports and then you start to act. But something has to happen quick. And that's why the speed here too. I had to report it because it concerns public health. It concerns my own health. I want to know what went on. I need investigation to reveal where the problem started, who's responsible, and how many people are affected by it. In Switzerland, it's, I think, 70%, minimum one jab, right? I think the statistics. You're a doctor. I think 70%, if not 60, 70. Imagine this, we have 9 million people. So millions of people were injected with mRNA technology that today we know is not safe. Figure out, there's no words for that. It is unthinkable. The last time experimental medicine has been forced on people, or given to people, was when the Nazis were doing it in the KZ.
Well, I want to stay a little bit at your family biography, because your father got assassinated in Malaysia.
Yes, he got assassinated on the 29th of July 2013. I was in Moscow when it happened. He discovered, or he felt like something's wrong with that time Prime Minister and the government. They were, today we know, they were laundering $4.7 billion of government money in their own pocket through a network of banks worldwide. And you can imagine the shock, etc. I'm still suffering of a severe depression, they call it, and long-term, and a PTSD, which you cannot cure. However, I energized myself enough to uncover the truth. Last year, the ex-Prime Minister Najib Razak went to prison for money laundering charges, and there's 40 more cases against him. So he will rot in jail. That's good, but it doesn't bring back a dead body. Revenge is the wrong emotion. It's the wrong emotion. How can you explain somebody who lost a person through an injection? That should be medicine. I mean, there's no money. There's nothing that you can. That's it. The person is gone. Finish.
I see you're deeply worried.
Yeah, of course. I have a ticking time bomb. I speak to professors, and some of them have been working on mRNA since 20 years, and they're telling me that I'm a layman. They say, look, the mRNA injection triggers out of control production of spike proteins. They're not really good for your body.
So you try to educate yourself as good as possible. You wrote to Swissmedic, which is the FDA equivalent?
Yes. No, it's the CDC. No, FDA, sorry. You're right, of course. FDA, yeah. Equivalent of the...
So what came out of this dialogue?
5 emails, 4 from back. I asked stupid questions first. They wrote back on the third previous email, they wrote back, after 4 emails, Mr. Najadi, I wrote back, dear Mrs. Najadi, gendering is something, wokeism, I don't know what it is. I said, sir, guys, I'm Mr. Najadi. And then they wrote back, and I asked them how much protein is formed in my body. Spike protein. And they admitted in writing, we don't know how much spike protein is formed in your body. They also say that the spike protein is dissolved short-term, kurzzeitig, short period. That sounds to me like a few days or hours, I don't know, which we know today is up to 6 months or 3 months, 90 days, 120 days. So in that period, I learned that the body produces out of control, it goes everywhere, spike proteins.
How do you explain this huge incoherence we have between authorities and scientific papers published?
The media, they were part of it. The mass psychosis was amplified through the media every day. On all levels, it was on all channels. It was one message, get vaccinated. Yeah. Some companies made rules like Swiss Airlines, forcing pilots and cabin personnel to get vaccinated, otherwise they lose a job. They lost their job, those who did not.
You know how many people lost their job?
No, I don't know, but a lot. And people were persuaded to get the jab. Information campaign was very clear, and they said, if not, you have consequences. You cannot go to restaurants, you have no life, you're singled out, which is, again, against the constitution of this country, because the constitution says everybody in front of the law is the same.
Right. Can we go back to the moment when you got the first time vaccinated?
Yeah.
So you went to a vaccination center?
That's right. Like, it was a nearby here vaccination center with my wife.
There have been other people, I guess?
Yeah, there was queues and it was train station. Next. Sit down, don't worry, and then pull up your pullover and poof, okay, fine, stamp, and then go.
Have you been informed? Have you written? Have you given your signature that you have been informed about that this is a product which has been? It's still experimental, and we don't know the long-term side effects. And
no,
any information?
There's no form that showed. I had to read and get informed about potential side effects or experimental, and then sign the same form. I didn't.
No written consent.
No, that's...
What do you think about that?
I'm angry at myself. I'm stupid, to be honest. I mean, I'm a banker, not a medical person, but I should have... Well, that's the point. If I cannot trust the Minister of Health anymore, of Switzerland, who do I trust? I mean, that's a simple question.
Now, coming back to this procedure that has been initiated when you went to the police, when you filed a criminal charge.
Yeah.
What are the next steps now?
If you file criminal charges, it's in the hands of state prosecution. In this case, it is already at the level of the highest authority, in this case of the federal. It's called the prosecutor of the Confederation of Switzerland, basically, the federal prosecution. We have an active dialogue, written dialogue. I have to submit some more information, which is constructive in my case. It's good for my case, in my case. And I'll do that in the next few days, as requested. And then it's out of my hands, because it's the government that has a duty to investigate. It's not like a lawsuit where I accuse somebody and then, bring my lawyer and all that. No. This is a crime, and it has to be investigated, in my view, personal opinion, as fast as possible. There can be, because potentially, knowing now, even Swissmedic on the 6th of January writing to me that they don't know how this stuff works. What happens if tomorrow or in 1 week there's 2 more dead people about this, or wheelchair people? I did my job. Now it's in the hands of the government. Justice has to do her job. In my view, it's a blue light job. I would, if I would be prosecutor, I would immediately confiscate everything.
So this is a test for the Swiss justice system.
Absolutely. It is a test. Absolutely. But you see, in front of the law in Switzerland, everybody's the same. President or not, rich or poor, foreigner or Swiss, same. Crime happens.
So basically everybody could do what you have done.
Yeah, everybody could do the same. I always tell people, learn how to think the thought. Now we have the facts. Look at the facts yourself. Google them. Go to Pfizer. The producer says stuff doesn't work, does not protect you against... why is this vaccination campaign still running? Pfizer told us on the 10th of October, 2 months ago, not working. Funktioniert nicht. Okay, that's the question. It's a human question about humanity. I could not, if I would be minister, I would have to throw up. I could not take responsibility for that. I would stop it immediately, especially after their own regulator admits.
Yeah. Well, the medical argument is that it prevents from severe disease.
Now, yes. But
But
also there is no evidence of that.
that's a point of discussion.
Yeah, well, scientists, fine.
And,
But
we have about 1,000 papers published about side effects of the COVID-19 vaccines.
so it's dangerous. Is it dangerous or not?
There have been a lot of people with having side effects. We have never seen something like this before when you look at the stats. So since we do a servant system, and we see this in the VERS and other systems, there are massive side effects. We've never had that before. Now, going to be interesting what happens the next weeks. What do you expect as the next steps?
Well, I'm not the prosecutor, I'm not a judge, but at this juncture, I'd like to say something very important, which is also important for your program. We're talking about Alain Besset, about this case, about me filing charges and why. He benefits from presumption of innocence at all times. It's a running case. I'm not the prosecutor, I'm not the judge. Just to make this point clear. I expect, again, I went to the police station as soon as I found out that something is really, really wrong, factually wrong, grave error, minimum gross negligence, if not intentional. I went to the police because I learned if you go to the police, something urgent, it goes quick. I have no money and time for lawyers to file and another week to lose. If I find something that prevents other people's harm, I should do it fast.
You want to see justice?
I want to see, well, and I want to see action. I want to see action.
Things have to move.
Well, if this stuff kills people, potentially, I mean, it should be stopped, have been stopped yesterday, so to speak.
Can we just talk a little bit about the responsibility of the producers of the vaccines and liability?
I'm not a lawyer. I have no clue how they are insured. Who said what's to whom?
Yeah, who is responsible for the
Who is responsible
the
for the
damage is done?
Well, who ran the campaign? Was it WHO forcing the campaign on governments and saying, this is the injection or vaccine that you must use? And for that, you have Moderna, you have Pfizer, you have Johnson & Johnson. Go and vaccinate. Was it the producers themselves which made marketing and said, ours is the best, use this one? I don't know. I was not part of those negotiations. All I know is that Bill Gates basically runs WHO as a single individual, controlling 20%, I don't know what. I mean, WHO is not the UN anymore. You have Gavi making all these kind of things. All of them have immunity.
Mm-hmm. Did it surprise you that Pfizer admitted that it does not prevent infection and does not avoid a transmission?
Yes. I mean, they have just declared bankruptcy on themselves. But, I mean, God bless this woman for telling the truth. At least she admitted it. Also Virginie Masseret, she's a children's doctor by formation. She has a heart. She resigned after that, by the way. You know that, she resigned. Yeah. I only can think why I feel why. Probably she said, my God, this guy said in public television, it protects you. That's not what I said 3 months ago. And she said, I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. I mean, she has to live with it as well, because she worked in the Federal Office for Public Health. But thank God she was honest on that press conference. Yeah. At least someone with authority, with clarity, made a clear statement that this stuff does not protect you from the coronavirus. Basta. So.
Well, the media did not report very much about what you did. The alternative media, yes, there have been a lot of interviews you have given. We're very happy that you respond to my questions. And now they're going to be quite a lot of international attention you're going to get.
I think so. Well, not so much me. I think the case.
The case
gets the attention.
Yes, the case.
Switzerland gets the attention because this is the only pending criminal case against a head of state in the entire world on this vaccination question. It's a criminal case pending. And it's Switzerland, the leader of democracy, the leader of justice, right? The leader of press freedom. Everybody is spotlighting and looking at our country's justice now, how it's been handled, and the results to take measures for themselves, probably. A responsibility of the WHO, responsibility of certain other actors in the game and the producers of the vaccines. I think Johnson withdrew their product. I think there was some problems. I'm not sure. But
I'm not aware of it.
Anyway, action has to happen. It has to happen fast. And the media, I'm sorry to say, they helped the psychosis, and during the pandemic, it was a complete psyop. It was a complete craziness. People, every day you had these statements, and people were scared to death.
Well, the message was it's safe and effective. It's safe and effective.
Yeah, do it. Safe and effective. And been tested, which is not true.
Do you see a lot of disappointment in your environment about people who have got vaccinated then?
They don't talk about it. They don't talk to me since weeks. I've got some really good friends. They hug me and they say, well done, this is good for the community. But many, not phone call, no email, nothing, no SMS. Silence. Because I think they're shocked themselves, because they cannot admit that they made a mistake themselves, trusting the Minister of Health. I made this mistake, I trusted him. I admit it, I'm injected 3 times, my wife, my mother. I have no problems admitting that. It's nothing to do with intelligence. It was a program from all channels. Go and vaccinate. It's safe, effective, been tested. We are in Switzerland. We are not in Malaysia. So, what to say? I want to encourage everybody to learn how to think the thought, to analyze themselves the facts. It's not me telling them, go to the police station to everybody. No, I have no authority for that kind of call. I have no motivation to create a movement. I'm not politically motivated. Zero. Also no damages. I didn't ask for any damages. I mean, money. I want justice. And if my fellow compatriots can realize what their situation is, they should think what they can do for themselves and act. But it's not for me to tell them what to do. They can learn from my case. It's public knowledge. In America now, with Dr. Filmich, I made an interview too. In Italy, it was on television, now with you. Voila. I mean, what more can I do than really trying to inform people about what we've just talked about? Mm-hmm. I cannot do more. I'm not Justice Department. I'm not police. I'm not judge. I'm a victim.
Do you have a question for me as a medical doctor?
Yeah. There was this psychosis going on. Oh, we cannot cope with the infected. What happens if there's a wave coming of infected people, like we saw these Bergamo lorries and all that? How was that for you? You were where, in Lausanne and Vevey, or in Vevey? Mm-hmm. Can you tell me, please, how you had these great new hospitals, these hundreds of beds ready to welcome or to treat the wave, expected wave of infected people? Yeah. What did you see? Yeah.
Well, I think we should have had from the very beginning much more, have involved the general practitioners in the fight against the pandemic, because they know their patients, they know who is at risk. And we should have encouraged from the very beginning early treatment, which was, of course, in March 2020, April 2020, not yet developed, but already 6 months later, we have had protocols in place. So we have had medication available to treat people, and the general practitioners would be the best to put that into place.
Yeah.
But the general practitioners have been under the influence of the media as well, and there was this fear out there, and very soon a kind of it was labeled as something like impossible to treat COVID. So a lot of doctors have been intimidated to treat patients, but I think that has been very bad, actually. We should have had done everything possible to give as much authority to the general practitioners, but instead of that, practices have been closed down. And so the result was that people have not been treated at all, and then situations get worse, and then they end up at the emergency or intensive care unit.
And then they intubate and kill them through the intubation, correct?
While people have been intubated, and of course there was a learning curve about how to treat COVID, but we should have had encouraged doctors from the very beginning to treat, at least in autumn 2020, people with early treatment, because in the US it has been shown that early treatment has prevented hospitalization and death up to 85%. So this would have been a highly effective strategy, but there was this kind of stigma that no, you don't treat COVID, the only solution is the vaccination.
But you're not allowed not to treat people. You swore on an oath.
We were perfectly allowed, and I did, to treat patients with what we call off-label.
That's what I'm saying. It's your duty to treat people as a doctor.
And it's even written in the article of the Swiss Federal Medical Association that you have to inform patient. There's Article 10. You have to inform the patient about the prognosis, the diagnosis, potential side effects. So the doctor is obliged to tell the patient what we know, what we don't know.
Yeah.
We have to tell the patient, we don't know what the potential long-term side effects are. And you need to have your signature, the signature of the patient. I informed you.
Yeah. Do you want it or not?
And you're also obliged to participate to fight against the crisis. That's where the vaccines come in. And so both is important, that we look at this, first of all, the potential treatments available. And I think we didn't do that enough. There has been a clear disencouragement to treat people. And we should have treated people as soon as possible, as soon as they come in with the first signs, because the longer you wait, the more complicated it gets.
Yeah.
But the main focus was on using and applying the vaccines.
But how can you apply a vaccine? Did they tell you that it's experimental, or I mean?
Well, we knew that, of course. I mean, we are obliged to inform ourselves. If I want to do my work in a conscientious way and sit in front of the patient, I'm going to tell them what I know, what I don't know. And we knew that is still in an experimental phase.
So you had to administer experimental?
No, I didn't do that.
No, you didn't do it?
No, I didn't do that.
You refused?
I refused. The vaccines, at the end of the day, have been made available just for those who said, I want to do this.
The doctor.
The doctor. And I never subscribed to the program of vaccination.
But it says in the Geneva Medical, the rule, this authority, where you swear that you will never administer experimental drugs under no circumstances to any patient. How could they do it?
Well, that's a very good question.
Where's the lawsuit there? Why do the doctors sue BAG and all the rest? Where is the doctor standing on?
Yeah. Well, that's a very good question. And at the end, it really comes down to the level of consciousness of each of us. It's their individual choice. And it was my perfect right to treat patients with early treatment with off-label prescriptions.
Yes.
That's what I did.
Yeah, tablets.
And I think that was highly successful.
This can never happen again in this country. And worldwide, it cannot happen again. I think the whole world is looking now at Switzerland, at us. How are we dealing with this? This is a crisis. The head of state has a criminal charge against him through justice, through absolute evidence of irregularities and mistakes.
I think what was highly problematic, extremely problematic, is that actually the data has been out there end of 2020, who is really at risk. And the people at risk were elderly people with several diseases. It was not the less than 55-year-old ones, and definitely not those below 18.
And
no children. And I do not understand why we vaccinate part of the population which is not at risk with an experimental product. This is what I do not understand.
But again, just now, having a dialogue.
Why are we doing that?
Experimental under no circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the Codex of Nuremberg, 1947.
Yeah. This has been in the media so present, and it's so dangerous, and COVID is so dangerous.
The media are liable, in my view, for pushing the narrative, in my view.
I have had people coming in scared to death because they think COVID, still now coming people in, very, very anxious that COVID is going to kill them. That's what we still have in daily practice. So the reason I wanted to do the interview with you is to provide good information.
Sure.
And to give information to people what you have done, because I think it has been very, very courageous. I think it's very important. And as you said, you're very humble about it, because it's not about you, it's about the case itself.
It's about the public health. Again, this can never happen again, but now we have to stop it. That's why I reported it.
Well, thank you so much
thank you.
for taking time, for answering my questions. I hope we're going to meet again.
We will. We will, and we have to update people out there what's happening. And again, I have this proverb which I developed in this crisis, and many before. If reality conquers illusion, it's time to wake up and act. So all you have to do, think the thought, denk die Denke. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.